Hey, what's going on, everybody? Louie back with Garage Gameday Sports. We're talking our college football week one predictions. Our first slate, the early slate of games, we're offering predictions for week one today. We're talking some Thursday games and early Saturday games. We got Florida-Utah on the docket, Nebraska-Minnesota. We're also talking Colorado-TCU, and we're closing with Boise State-Washington. But before we jump in, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on all the socials. We appreciate any and all support. We're also on Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. And feel free to check us out on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Let us know what you think of the show. We appreciate any and all feedback. Let us know what you want to see more of. And any questions you got, we'll be sure to do a mailbag episode. If you missed it, a couple of days ago, we did a mailbag episode with some questions about NFL, college football, that sort of thing. Let us know any questions you got. We'll be sure to answer any and all questions. I want to jump into Florida and Utah. Thursday kick, tomorrow night. The Gators going to Salt Lake City. First time an SEC opponent travels to Salt Lake City. Utah plays pretty good at Rice-Eccles. They are undefeated in their last, I believe, 2 seasons. I know they were undefeated last year. But, of course, the big question is the injury concern for Cam Rising. We don't know his status for the game. Kyle Whittingham's playing it coy. That's what he tends to do. He plays it close to the vest. We don't know the status of Cam Rising if he's playing. We also don't know Brant Keithy either, the tight end last year. He tore his ACL in September. Cam Rising tore his in January in the Rose Bowl against Penn State. We don't know if either one of them can go. Florida, you also have a new quarterback. Graham Mertz transfers in from Wisconsin to replace Anthony Richardson, who kept Florida in a lot of games last year. He made a lot of plays with his arms, with his legs. Graham Mertz, pretty much a pure pocket passer. You're not going to get a whole lot of him in the running game. So we'll see what he brings, the Big Ten flavor that he brings coming in from Wisconsin. Utah, if Rising can't go and you don't have your top target in Keithy, you're going to rely a lot on the running game. You're going to see Barnes, the backup quarterback, in. You could even see Johnson, the third-string quarterback, make an appearance. But they're going to lean heavily on Jaquindon Jackson. Converted quarterback. He was in the quarterback room at Texas, transferred, switched positions. Now he's running back, doing a heck of a job at that for Utah. So interesting to see what he does, and if Florida's going to stack the box. Florida already has a pretty decent pass rush. They're going to be aggressive, and if Cam Rising's not there, they're going to send the house at whoever's in the backfield. So very interesting game. I can't wait to see this game, and the first of a brutal back-to-back for Utah, a brutal back-to-back non-conference schedule. Of course, Florida comes to Salt Lake, then they got to travel to Waco next week to take on Baylor. So very interesting to see if Utah can navigate their way through this opening couple of weeks of their schedule before they get into conference play. The reigning back-to-back Pac-12 champs. Let's see what they can do and make some noise. They're kind of being overlooked this year when you got USC, Washington, Oregon State, all of which ranked in the top 15. So the Utes been kind of an afterthought. But we'll see Cam Rising's status. That's going to be the main selling point to this game, I think. I personally would lean Florida. I would take Florida. I believe the last I checked, they were plus 6.5. I would take Florida in the points. I don't know quite. I think I would lean Florida about 23-20, which would also be the under total. I believe it's about 44.5. So I would take Florida in that case, and Florida with the points. I lean 23-20 right now, but that's a big caveat. That's if Rising and Keithy both do not play. Because I just think Graham Mertz, you kind of know what you're getting as far as quarterback. And with the pass rush, I think they'll be able to get after whoever's in the backfield if Rising can't play. So I lean the Gators here to end Utah's winning streak at Rice-Eccles Stadium. Second game on the docket, Nebraska-Minnesota. A lot of new pieces for both. Matt Rule comes in for Nebraska. You have Jeff Sims at quarterback, the transfer from Georgia Tech. Then Minnesota, Callie McManus, the Greek rifle is what they're calling him. We saw him in limited action last year. He started a few games for Tanner Morgan, believed by many to be an upgrade for Tanner Morgan at the quarterback position. And you still have PJ Fleck, at coach, and you can see what what the plan is for both of those teams here this season. In as far as the pecking order in the Big Ten, you don't know really what either one of them is going to bring as far as whether they're contenders or not. Of course, you're Minnesota. You lose Mo Ibrahim to the draft. You lose John Michael Schmitz, one of the best offensive linemen in the country. He went to the Giants via the NFL draft. So you have a couple of key pieces right off the bat you've got to replace. And for Nebraska, we'll see if you can get back to your winning ways. It's been a long time since they've been able to do anything really of substance. So I'm very interested in this game. New quarterbacks, new coach for Nebraska, and we'll see what Fleck can do at Minnesota. I'm very interested in this game. I think Minnesota is favored, and I would lean to Minnesota. I think they have the more stable team right now. And with Rule coming in, I may like him more long term. I know he's been more of a college coach. He didn't really work out at Carolina with the Panthers in the NFL. But what he did at Baylor, what he hopes to do here at Nebraska, I look to see some good things from Matt Rule. But I lean Minnesota here. I will say about 27-24. I think both teams clamp down on defense near toward the end of the game. And I think Minnesota can grind out a win here at home. The next game, Colorado-TCU. This is an early Saturday kickoff on Fox, I believe. TCU a 20-point favorite, maybe 20.5-point favorite. I'm not sure I totally trust the line, but this is a very intriguing game otherwise, even if you're not betting this game or live betting this game or what have you. But I love this matchup because you get to see two teams on totally opposite ends of the spectrum. We saw TCU, what they did last year. Only 2 losses in the entire season. They lost the Big 12 championship game, and then, of course, we all know what happened in the college football playoff. They were overwhelmed by Georgia. But just getting there, they took down Michigan. They they split 2 with Kansas State. They beat Texas and Austin. They had a lot of key wins, a lot of close wins, and they pulled out. And that's in large part due to Sonny Dykes and that TCU offense, who he's going to have to replace a ton of pieces for. You, of course, lose Max Duggan. You lose Quentin Johnston. You lose Kendre Miller, a running back. You lose Steve Avila, your best offensive lineman. You lose Hodges Tomlinson on the back end. So you got a lot of pieces to replace. And speaking of pieces to replace, Colorado brought in over 50 transfers. Coach Prime totally revamped this roster. He brings in his son, Shedeur Sanders, at quarterback. You have a widely heralded two-way player in Travis Hunter. We'll see how much he can play at wide receiver and at corner. You bring in just a ton of guys, and we'll see if they can put it all together. I know they were 1-11 last year, totally opposite end of the spectrum from TCU. TCU was in the national championship game and a Big 12 championship game finalist. Colorado was probably the worst Power 5 team in the country. 1-11, bottom of the Pac-12. So we'll see what Coach Prime can do with this roster. Over-under for their win total set about 3.5. So while they should improve, it's not going to be, an overnight thing. It's going to take probably a good year or two. But we'll see a good litmus test, them traveling to Fort Worth to take on TCU. I picked TCU here. I know even with all the departures they've got, I know Sonny Dykes, we'll see what he can really do with the departure of all those guys. But I really like Sonny Dykes as a coach. All eyes are going to be on this game because of Coach Prime and because of Colorado. But I lean TCU here. The talent gap is probably going to be too wide. They're playing at home. So many new pieces, so many new moving parts for the Buffs. So I really like TCU here. I don't think they cover. I would say something along the lines of like a 41-24 where TCU's flirting with covering the 20.5, and I think maybe Colorado gets a late touchdown to swing it the other way, something like that. I'd be looking more at the over-under. I think the over-under, the last time I checked was maybe like 66, something like that. The over-under that I'm getting right now is 64. So 41-24 would just be a tick over the 64 points. So I think I would go with the over, and I would go with TCU. Or I would go with Colorado, actually, against the spread, but of course picking TCU to win the game 41-24. The final game we're talking today, in our week 1 college football prediction, our early slate, the Thursday through Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon games because of the Labor Day. You know, you get games through Sunday and Monday. We'll cover some of those later on in the week. Boise State at Washington. If you saw my college football prediction video about a week ago, I have Washington making the college football playoff, winning the Pac-12, and I have Boise State going to the Cotton Bowl as the highest rated Group of 5 champion. I have Boise State winning the Mountain West, dropping this game to Washington. Spoiler alert. But by virtue of those two things, if those two things were to happen and these two teams perform the way I think they could, this is a huge game this week because it would effectively be a college football playoff team versus a New Year's 6 Mountain West champ team. So I'm interested to see what Boise State does. Taylor Green comes back after taking over at quarterback last year. Of course, Washington and that high-flying offense with Michael Penix, Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan, just a very deep team. We get to see another year of Kalen DeBoer, what he can do. So I'm very interested in this game. I think a lot of points are going to be scored. The last I checked, I think Washington was about a 14.5 point favorite. That's still what I'm seeing. So I do like the Huskies in this game. I just think they're going to have too much offense. But I like Boise State to hang around. I think if they drop this game, they still have a manageable schedule here on out, and I think they run through the Mountain West. This may be their only loss. They could get tripped up along the way. But I do like Washington in this game. I would take the minus 14.5. I would like Washington in this game. Maybe like 38-21, something like that, which would put them just over the total also. The over-under, the last time I checked, was 58.5. That would put you right at 59. I just like the Huskies this year. I like Kalen DeBoer. I think that defense will improve. I think they're the favorites in the Pac-12, and you can make a case for 5 teams, for pretty much all the ranked Pac-12 teams. And I think Boise State will run through the Mountain West. I just like Washington, too much offense right now, I think. And Boise can afford to lose this game by multiple scores as long as they bounce back and kind of make headway through the Mountain West. Tulane and UTSA, 2 other teams that I have in consideration for the New Year's 6 G5 bowl berth. They play each other the last week of the season, so that could easily be an elimination game. And if one of those 2 teams trips up along the way, they go to Houston this week, which I think is another sleeper game. That should be very, very good, very interesting to watch this week. And they also go to Tennessee in a few weeks. So if UTSA were to lose, say, both of those games or lose the Tennessee game and somewhere along the way, and then they beat Tulane, that could knock both of them out of contention, opening the door for Boise State. So by my metrics and my picks for what I see playing out the rest of the season, I think this is a huge game. But I like Washington. I'll say 38-21, so Washington covers. And then they also just a tick over the 58.5 number. So I do like Washington here. It's going to be a loaded slate of college football, folks. This week I'll be back again with the second half of my college football week 1 predictions. So be sure to check those out. We'll be talking LSU Florida State, of course. Looking at a couple of other games. So be on the lookout for that. This is Louie with Garage Gameday Sports. Feel free to, once again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're building it. We're at 160 subscribers. We're building it. We've almost doubled our numbers in the last month and a half or 2. So we're moving on up, people. We're trying to move on up in the world. And check us out on Twitter. Feel free to ask us anything NFL, college football related. We're ramping up the content. We're pushing out a bunch of content here in the next 3-4 months. My name's Louie for Garage Gameday Sports. Signing off. We'll see you all later this week.